Hi guys, it's Sarah from Book Nerds and Fangirls, and today I'll be reviewing the first 3 episodes of The Haunting of Hill House. Now this show is pretty good. I've only watched the first 3 episodes, and I'm immediately sucked in by their director style. The director is Mike Flanagan. He's directed Oculus, Ouija, Origin of Evil, and the new Netflix original movie, which is Gerald's Game, which also stars the mother in this show, by the way, who is also the mother from Spy Kids. Fun fact, if you didn't know that. But this show follows I believe it was, let me find out what, okay. This show follows the Crane family. They have just moved in to a new house called Hill House. Their parents, for a living, they redecorate, and I think they fix houses. I don't know the actual term for it. They fix up houses so they can sell them back for a price. So that's what the parents do. And this show follows their 5 kids whenever they're younger and whenever they're older. So this show is in parallels. We see scenes of the kids when they were younger and what happened at Hill House through each of their perspectives, because the first 5 episodes are their perspectives. The first episode we get Steven's perspective, which, spoiler alert, I think Steven is the worst of the 5. There's just something very pretentious about his attitude, and I don't really like it, especially because he's one of the kids that didn't really know what the fuck was going on. He didn't really see anything out of the ordinary. He blames his mom and dad for things that happen. He thinks that they're crazy, especially the mom. Steven is not my favorite character. The second episode is through Cheryl's point of view. Cheryl's a hit or miss character for me. She's more of the overprotective older sister because she feels like Steven didn't really do his big brother duties. Then we have Theo, who's the middle child. She just goes with the flow. She has a germaphobe problem. We'll get more into her germaphobe problem when I discuss episode 3 in detail. Because apparently it's not a germaphobe problem, but she calls it that. The 3rd episode was probably one of my favorites out of the 3. So, if you ask, Sarah, what was your favorite of 3 episodes? Definitely episode 3, whenever we're following Theo. Episode 4, I haven't got to. It's from Luke's perspective. And then episode 5 is from Nell's perspective. We'll get more into Nell as I discuss more. So, the kids, they're all grown up now. And this series is the first 5 episodes at least is through their perspective of what happened in that house and what ended up happening that night. I think the dad's perspective is in episode 6, and we will also get the mom's perspective at some point, even though she's dead in the series. This is a spoiler review. You clicked on it, you get spoiled. Which is really sad because the mother in this is great at acting. In every scene that she's in, she just demands your attention. I don't know what it is. It's just she's great. great. Also, the girl who plays Theo is pretty good at acting, even though I haven't seen her in a lot. But it also helps that her young counterpart, I believe Mackenzie Grace plays Theo. Like her counterpart is a pretty big kid actress. Also, the kids in this are great at acting. I haven't met a single one of their kids that have truly annoyed me or really bad at acting. Because sometimes, the acting isn't great for kids because they're still learning how to act in a way that's appropriate for the screen. So of course they won't be amazing, but these kids are pretty good at acting. So onward. Enough with the whole chitter chatter about how great the show is in general. I want to talk more about the directing style. Mike Flanagan is pretty good at directing. Like, this show has a simplistic way of scaring you. It's not something you haven't seen before, but he tries to do it in new ways that are interesting. They'll keep you invested. It also helps that he has great characters, and no character is like the same from every other character, which is like very important in a show to have individual traits of each child, and even as adults. Like, you could see their transformations from when they're kids to when they're adults, and it's like interesting to see how the haunting of Hill House, or Hill House in general, and their mother's death / suicide has affected them each in different ways. Like, it's like a real roller coaster, and I really like it. I am actually really nervous for the 4th and 5th episode because it seems like the twins were the ones that were affected the most by what happened, even though, most of the siblings cut these two out because Nella's over dramatic and Luke is a drug addict. And that's not like a spoiler because, like, literally, if you watch the trailer for this, it's in the trailers that like, Luke is a drug addict. But, the trailers also, whoever put them together deserves a raise because it was just like, the trailers were so great. All 3 of them, they're all on Netflix if you want to watch them. But all 3 of them are interesting and intriguing and didn't really give away a lot about the plot either. Like, this is how you edit trailers. If Netflix could edit good trailers, so could actual legit people who edit for, like, big screen things. Things like trailers. Spot on. So the first episode is from Steven's perspective. I had, like, a couple issues with this episode, probably because this is more so, like, an introduction to the family episode than it is truly, like, Steven's point of view, because Steven, when he was younger, he didn't really see anything in Hill House. He saw, like, a couple of, like, weird on and end things, but he didn't really see any of the ghosts. He believed that his parents were crazy. Like, he wakes up that night. We'll talk about that night more when the series that I'm doing goes on, because I'm doing this in, like, 3-parters. Like, episodes 1 through 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 9, and then finally, like, episode 10, because we know I'm gonna be talking about the series as a whole in episode 10. 10 minutes, so that's gonna need its own little spot. But so the first episode, it's all from Steven's point of view. And Steven has grown up to be a writer, and he profits off writing about what happened at Hill House, even though he didn't really experience anything in Hill House, which puts a wedge between him and Cheryl, most importantly, because Cheryl doesn't want him to profit from making their mother sound crazy, because she firmly believes that everything that happened in that house was real. Even though, I haven't really seen Cheryl see the ghost. She had an experience with death when she was a kid. We'll get to that in episode 2. Like, every kid believes that house was haunted, except Steven, who would rather believe that his parents were crazy than actually legit go, hey, this house is haunted. Maybe something really fucked up happened here. I'm in here. So, Steven doesn't really get a lot of introduction in this one. I know he's an author. I know he's a pretentious asshole, that's for sure. He also profits off other people's paranormal experiences and writes them in books. Book form. It was just like, he's never seen a ghost in his life, which we'll get to later. This also, like, acts as an episode to introduce all the kids when they're adults. Like Cheryl, we know she owns a funeral home. Theo, we don't really get a lot of her in this episode, whether she's a kid or an adult. We get more of her perspective in episode 3, which is by far my favorite episode so far. Nell, this seemed more centered around Nell because she's having a hard time. She keeps on saying the bent neck lady is back, which we see her perspective from when she was a kid. And seeing this woman, which she only appears twice, I feel like there's gonna be more of her in episode 5. 5, which I'm not emotionally or physically prepared for, especially my cat's been doing what she's been doing for like 2 of these episodes. We'll get more into that in like episode 2 discussion. So she's been seeing that, and the bent neck lady is back when she's an adult and terrorizing her. So she's calling her siblings throughout this episode. Because, like, the bent neck lady's back. She feels like there's something wrong with Luke because they're twins, and twin telepathy is a thing in this show, as well as every other show involving twins, I've noticed. She feels like there's something, she's worried about Luke. We find out that Luke is actually a drug addict in this one. We don't really see him as an adult a lot in this episode until the final part of this episode. And of course, like, I feel like this episode was all over the place. And I don't know if I liked that. I liked, like, exploring their individual stories as a whole, but I like it whenever they take a single point of focus and run with it through the show. The show is a lot less confusing and a lot more easier to keep up with, because for the longest time, like, whenever they introduced Theo in, like, a split-second scene, I didn't know who the fuck she was. Because her introduction, whenever she was a kid, was only 2 seconds. I thought she was, like, Cheryl, actually. I didn't know they had another daughter. I think, I didn't hear they go back to bed, Theo. When I watched it for the second time, because I was watching it again with my husband, because I wanted him to watch it. He's like, you have fun in this series, because he doesn't do horror like I do. So he doesn't want a part of this series. Seriously, so it's just like this episode is all over the place, which is like my major complaint about it is that it's an introduction episode. So of course, introduction episodes are all over the place. They're trying to introduce these multiple characters, yet somehow, even though it's all over the place, it works. And I feel like I'm a kid on acid trying to explain this episode. It's just one you have to watch. But most importantly, I want to talk about the ending scene of this episode. So the ending scene of this episode is different. Because, like, we see Steven. He's gotten back from, like, investigating this woman's house, where she had seen her husband floating on the ceiling after he died. So he was investigating that, and he realizes what was actually happening to her. So he's coming back from that. We see Luke finally in this scene, and he's trying to steal stuff from Steven. Who gives him $200 in exchange for his iPad back. And we're led to assume that Luke is gonna use the money for drugs, even though he says that that's not what this is about. We know it's probably what it's about. I guess we'll figure out more in episode 4 what that's about, because it's Luke centered. So we'll see more in episode 4. So it cuts out he goes up, sees that Nell is standing right there, which Nell, in the episode, in her last moment before this one, in the episode, we had seen that she had gone back to Hill House for reasons unknown, because I haven't watched episode 5. So she went back to Hill House, and she said goodbye to her dad, and she was walking in Hill House, and then we had this weird dance number of her just dancing around the room. We'll find out more about that in episode 5, I'm sure. I want to know what the hell happened to Nell's husband. That's one thing I want to know about. For sure, as the series goes on, what happened to her husband. Because I think she was in a hotel room whenever we saw her. In the episode? I'm not sure. Again, episode 5. Definitely gotta watch it. So, Steven comes back from dealing with Luke. And we see Nell, and she's there, just standing there, which, by the way, I have to say, this is, the best moment in the show, which made me, continue with it, because the scene is, just so good. So, Nell is just, standing there. They're not saying anything, while Steven yells at her, saying, "What, you just gonna let him loot me? That's perfect. Now, what do you want?" He's being, so mean to his sister because she's so over dramatic all the time. But then he gets a call from his dad. Who tells Steven that Nell has just committed suicide. And then after that, we see, Nell just, pop up beside him, which scared the shit out of my husband, by the way. It was pretty great. We see Nell pop beside him. beside him, and then, you know, she starts screaming and her face gets all distorted, and it was just like, it was a good moment. It was a good scene, and that's where it ends in this episode. So this episode was not my favorite episode. If not, this is probably like my least favorite episode, but it's the introduction episode, which is okay. Okay, but onward to discussing episode 2. So episode 2 is from Cheryl's point of view, and like it only, like, the introduction is like a second long, like literally a second, and it's only like Cheryl saying Nellie's in the red room, like, which we better get more introduction to this red room. It was like stated in episode 1. Like I said, episode 1 was all over the place, so I can't really go into detail about episode 1 because it would take me like forever to talk about it. Like, there was a couple problems I had with episode 1 being the lighting in the introduction scene. It was just so dark, and 2, the conversation between Steven, Nellie, Luke, and their dad. Like, I feel like it wasn't really necessary for Stevie to be there. Honestly, they could have just did that with, like, the dad and the daughter, or just had Luke be the one to talk to her. I didn't really think we need, like, Steven in that one. But that's, like, one of the major two petty issues I have with episode 1. But, so we figure out in this episode that Cheryl is actually a funeral director. Like, we find that out more in, like, episode 1. But the episode 1 is so over the place that you can't really focus on one specific thing. So this episode is more Cheryl-centric. We get to learn more about Cheryl when she was a kid who had her first brush of death whenever she found a box of kittens. Like, I will never look at kittens the same way after this episode, because these kittens that she found, they were sick, they were dying, and all you see is, like, these dead kittens and the imagery, like, oh my god, the kitten's alive, and then a cockroach or whatever it was falls out of its mouth, which, by the way, was, like, gross, and then, oh my god, all the cats are dead. Wait, one cat is still breathing, and it opens their eyes, and the eyes are, like, bloodshot red, like that scene got me good, because, oh my god, it's the realistic things that get me. And those ghost things, I'm just like, whatever, but that actually happens because the cat is sick. And it's just like the mom had to go put it out of its misery. We also find out in this show that the mom has migraines, which we get more into why she has migraines in episode 3. Episode 3 is my favorite, because it, like, puts a lot of things in perspective for me, especially Theo, which I don't get to see a lot of Theo in these past 2 episodes. Theo's my favorite so far. Who's your favorite character, by the way? Mine's Theo. But we find out that Cheryl's a funeral director. She finds out that Nell has just committed suicide. And then she wants to prepare Nell's body for the funeral, which a lot of people tell her it's not a good idea to prepare, like, her own sister's dead body. Even her husband's like, let's just, you know, have someone we know and trust prepare Nell's body. And then Cheryl's like, no, I want to do it. Dude, I thought this episode to be a little bit scarier than it was, because we're prepping, like, Nell's dead body. dead body. In the final scene, like close to the final scene, we see their mother. Their mother, and like she's like holding this box. I can't remember what was in the box specifically, but their mother in that scene reminded me of, if anyone has watched Repo the Genetic Opera, I think it's called. She reminds me of Blind Meg in that scene. Because her eyes don't have irises in them, and I'm all like, that just reminds me of Blind Meg. Like I said, the ghost stuff doesn't really get to me a lot. What did get to me in this episode, however, was whenever I was watching so closely, my cat decided at that specific moment to play with shit around the house. So I was hearing all these noises, and then my cat decided she was gonna spaz out like she does on occasion, and then she was running around, and then she stops and looks at one spot and growls, and then, especially because this show had like a kitten centered problem, I was just all over here like, well, I'm never looking at cats the same way again. And then she just like decides that she's gonna go cuddle in my lap, and I'm just like you didn't have a spaz out moment 2 seconds ago. Okay, we also figure out that Cheryl is like one of those people that really takes care of her family, because the oldest, Steven, doesn't really do that. We also find out that Cheryl and Steven don't really talk because he wrote a book making it seem like their mother and father were crazy, except what really happened. Which, it pisses a lot of the siblings off, which I don't. Which I get. He still wrote it anyway, and it wasn't like an accurate representation because he never really went through anything. But we also figure out that she also, like for the special cases, she also does funerals for pretty cheap, which is hurting her business. Her husband doesn't really like it. But it was like, and then we see, like, Cheryl protects her family so much that she literally sent Luke away when he was high at Nell's wedding. So I find it sad that Nell never knew that Luke was there. Or she might have. I haven't got to episode 5 yet. She might have known he was there. But I didn't really feel like I got a lot from episode 2. But episode 3 was just the best. We start off with Theo, and she's in her bed. And someone is like cuddling her and squeezing her really tight, and she assumes it's Nell because Nell has nightmares all the time in that house, and she can't sleep by herself. Like, this house really fucked with Nell and Luke especially. Like, the two twins were the ones affected the most. So I'm all like so ready to watch episode 4 and 5. Soon, you don't even know. No, so we don't know. Know who was holding her hand, because she turns around and there's like no one there. And I think this is my favorite intro scene out of all the intro scenes, personally. And there's a lot of people coming in and out today. It was just like, hopefully they don't hear me. They probably hear me. That's okay. But, so we figure out in this episode that Theo is actually a therapist for children in foster care. Because she's a child therapist and she specializes in issues with foster kids, and she even helps CPS every once in a while. With her hutches and stuff. So we figure out in this episode a lot more, which by the way, the whole Luke in the basement and that thing crawling towards him was like the most terrifying moment so far. Like, I saw it coming. I did. You could see it coming. Like, it literally crawls toward him so slow, and yet it's still pretty effective at how much it's scary without really being scary. Like, I don't even think the monster makes that much noise, which is pretty refreshing because monsters always tend to make noise in horror movies, but this one didn't make a lot of noise. So, like, I'm wondering what the hell is, like, happening with Theo and her germophobia. Because she wears gloves she's worn those gloves almost every episode, and now she's like not wearing the gloves, not wearing them, I was wondering what was going on. And this episode is so interesting. So as a kid, she's doing all this paranormal stuff. She's figuring out a lot of stuff that normal people would not. So her dad, like the intro scene, like her and her dad are cleaning out the garage, and her dad's about to throw away like a very expensive bottle of champagne or wine, and she senses that there's something really expensive in this box, so she hands it back to her dad, who opens it and finds the bottle of wine. And he wants to know how she knows that. I personally just thought it was because it was a little bit heavier than most things, but in her mind she knew. She also sends like Luke back down to the basement, even though she knows better because their nanny, whatever she is, Miss Dudley told her no, it's not safe to do that, but they still did it anyway. Which, by the way, I want to know more about Mrs. Dudley. She seems like a straight up cray person, but like I think we'll learn more about her as the show goes on. I don't know what happened to them either. Like, what happened to those two? Who knows? So, and then, like, during, like, the whole kid scenes, like, I want to discuss the kid scenes because a lot is happening for Theo present day as well. Like, this was, like, a really well put together episode that I thoroughly enjoyed. So she finds a bottle of wine. She also knows it's not a good idea to send Luke down below to the basement because she has a bad feeling. She also feels that Miss Dudley isn't trying to be mean, she's just scared, and Miss Dudley asks her, how do you know that? And she's like, just a feeling. It's just a feeling. She also, we also figure out that her mother's like, does this room feel cold to you? And she's like, this whole house feels cold to me. But that specific spot is pretty cold too. So we know there's something up with Theo. She also finds out the crawl space that Luke had went under and discovered, like, the ghost and stuff. So, like, she goes back down to that basement, and And I expect, you know, it to be like monsters everywhere, but no, she's totally fine through most of the scene. It's just like more atmospheric, scary than anything, because you expect something to pop up, but it doesn't. She just finds this really old book. I feel like that book is gonna come back into play in later episodes, but right now it's pretty, you know, it's just a book. And it's pretty interesting. But, let's see. The episode ends with her mother explaining to her that she has ESP, I think it's called. It runs in the women in their family, so they could sense ghosts, they could sense when something's off, they could sense people's emotions. They're also really good at finding out shit, and they could touch other people and predict what's gonna happen to them. I also think it's called a medium. By the way, correct me down below in the comments what she is, because I don't know the correct word for it. But it turns out that she has that. And it, like, all the women in their family did. The grandmother, the mom, and now Theo. I'm pretty sure Nell also has it, which is why she sees a bent neck lady. Possibly Luke as well. Because if you noticed, like, Cheryl and Steven, they don't really see a lot in this house. Their experiences are more based on, like, real life stuff, while all the other kids are more on ghosts and stuff. So the final scene in this is from that night. I'm talking more about the kid part than the adult part, because the adult part does have some meaning to it too. So last thing as a kid, like, her mom gives her these gloves. Because one, it will help with the cold. Because Theo is always cold because the house is haunted. And she can sense that it's haunted, as well as, like, the mom. The mom could also sense it. Like, the mom is pretty good in this show, and it makes me sad that she's dead, because we figure out she died via suicide, as well as Nell. But we'll get into that when the series goes on. So, So, like, that night, she's just, like, she's running down the stairs, and I don't know why she's running down the stairs, she just is. And her dad has, like, both twins in the hand, like, running with him. And then he touches Theo, and then all this shit flashes through this screen. We'll get more about what happened, what that's about, whenever the dad or mom-centered episode airs, I believe. But it was just, like, straight up, like, did the dad have something to do with the mom's death? Who knows? A lot of crazy shit's happening in this show. Definitely. But, that was the final scene of her as a kid, and she just screams, like, don't touch me. Because she doesn't like being touched. Because she could sense other people's, the stuff that's happening in other people's life, and she doesn't like that, because she doesn't like seeing how other people are gonna die, or how what's happened to them in the past. And yada yada. And this comes more into play whenever she's dealing with one of her patients. Now, we find out Theo is actually a therapist in this one for foster kids, because she wanted to use her ESP, or medium powers, for good. So when she touches people, she could sense what's going on with them. under them, and it helps her further in the career. She's very good at what she does. Does good for her for taking the blood money that Steven gave her and doing something good with it. Good of it. I like that like part at the end where it's like, so what are you gonna do with the money? And she's like, I'm gonna get my fucking PhD. And I'm like, you go, girl. Girl. So we find out in this episode that she's pretty good at using her ESP powers, except when it comes to this one girl. She touches this one girl, and she can't see anything. And this one girl is dealing with a paranormal experience entity that she calls Mr. Smiley. Now, Theo, this episode is about her finding out why she can't just touch this girl and find out what's happening to her. So she sees nothing for this girl, not a paranormal experience or anything. And there's this scene that's very effectively done when Theo is asleep and someone is like dragging her sheets, and it's like Mr. Smiley. By the way, that scene was chilling. I liked that scene a lot. So this girl has gone into her head, and you know, she decides that she's gonna go to this girl's house because she wants to know if anything actually occurred in this house. So she like goes down, ask the foster parents if she could see their basement. She goes down to the basement, touches everything, goes to the couch, lies down on the couch where she sees on the ceiling that there is a smiley, some creases or something that are shaped like a smiley face. So in that, she figures out that the foster dad has been molesting the foster child. She calls CPS, and the case is solved. So it turns out that this little girl had created this entity as a coping mechanism for her being molested by her foster dad, because it was a way to cope what was happening with her. And that's why she built walls, which was probably why Theo couldn't get into her mind. Because it's pretty interesting seeing that Theo could do this with everyone, except, those who are not willing. I think she also, like, takes her gloves off to touch the foster dad's hand so she could see if he had really been doing this. It's like, what are you doing? And she's all like, I'm looking at your smile, because that's who Mr. Smiley is her foster dad, because he's like an actual monster, like, ugh. Like, and then she, like, this episode also deals with her and how she handles Nell's death, because she finds suicide to be a very selfish act which is a perspective of a lot of people. I'm more like in a gray area when it comes to that kind of stuff. So she goes, like, she doesn't want to see Nell's body, and she can't really bring herself to do all this, which is understandable at best. So in the ending of the episode, we see that she goes down there, touches Nell's body. I think she either saw what happened to Nell, or she didn't see anything, which is why she broke down at that moment, because she wants to know what happened to her sister. sister. It's also like revealed in the last couple minutes of this episode that she knows why the husband has a secret bank account. We don't know. We know it's not a mistress or anything like that. It's just something a hell lot worse than that. And I think that the business is failing, to tell you the truth. But we'll see about that when the episodes keep going. She also calls back the girl from the first episode, so she calls back the girl and she has like this emotional moment where she like reveals everything that happened at her job that day and then what happened with her sister, and it was just such a nice moment. I'm totally like shipping this couple, by the way. Even though I totally forgot what the other girl's name was. Because I don't see her a lot, but I'll ship it. So, what else do I have to say about that? And then at the end of the episode, she asks someone to finally touch her because, she has a problem with people touching her. And it really shows how far she's come from when she was a kid to where she is now. Now, it was just such a beautifully directed episode, and I can't wait for the next 3 episodes. So there you guys have it. That was my thoughts and review on the first 3 episodes of The Haunting of Hill House. First episode was meh, second episode was okay, and the third one really drove it home. I'm really hoping that episodes 4 through 6 are the best. I'll probably watch them later on today. Who knows? I'll definitely watch episode 4 today, for sure. And then I will also be recording a lot of other content for the channel. I'm going to, of course, be reviewing episodes 4 through 6, all the episodes of this in, like, threes. I also have my Crazy Ex-Girlfriend review coming up. I'm filming a lot today, so I got content for you guys all week. I'm also gonna be doing my Venom review finally, as well as reviewing the new series of Charmed, as well as ranking my favorite Demi Lovato songs from least favorite to absolute favorite. So comment down below and let me know what kind of stuff you want me to talk about, because I'm always open to suggestions because I wouldn't be where I am today without you guys, and I thank you for that. But I don't know, comment down below and let me know. I'll also probably be reviewing Sabrina the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina when it first comes out, but it'll probably be episode by episode. We'll see. I got a whole lot of content for you guys, and I'm so excited. But there you guys have it. That is my review, and I'll see you in my next episode. Bye!